5 or 6 second delay. So again, we'll see how this all works out as far as the streaming service. All right, buddy. Welcome to Digital Asset News. Taking top stories in crypto and bring them down to bite-sized pieces. So we'll see how this all works out. First of all, let me just say, our friend of the show, Mike the Investor, is here. Mike, thanks for coming by. Appreciate it.
Rob, man, thanks for having me on. How you been? It's been a while.
Oh man, it's been a long time. Yeah, it's been a long time. So everybody, today, what we were supposed to talk about was a pretty uplifting, rah-rah session about how great the market is. And of course, that didn't work out too hot because right now it looks like the market is doing a little bit of a dumpy action. And before we go on, first of all, I just had to ask everybody, how's the audio? How's the video? I'm streaming from a new location. I need to make sure that it's not too glitchy or blocky or something like that. So let me know about that in the comment section. I know you guys are like 5 or 6 seconds behind, and we'll go from there. So here is the train of thought as far as what we are going to go over. Let me pull some things up. And this is what we got. So first of all, again, we were going to do it. Mostly we're going to be talking about Raoul Pal and his predictions, but we have to talk about this ETF that has just tanked in the last so many minutes. Is this a bad thing, or is this something that we should all be used to as far as crypto investors? We're going to take a look at Raoul Pal and his price predictions, which are pretty crazy, but then when he gets into it, it does make a lot of sense. Also, we're going to talk about the Houston firefighters pension, which is the first U.S. pension to get involved into cryptocurrency. They put $25 million into Bitcoin and Ethereum. And we're going to take a look at, if you're outside the United States, just how scary that is as far as pension problems. And then finally, I'm going to finish this off with a personal story about how I try to get my idiot brothers into crypto and digital assets by essentially bribing them. And they just said, pretty much, you're out of your mind. And we'll go over all those things. But first, let's take a look at what the heck is going on with this market. Mike, what do you think? What happened?
Man, it's kind of hard to tell right now. I think there's two ways to look at it. The first way could be a healthy pullback from all-time highs, and we could be bouncing back. Or the other way could be, as history has shown, when we have, big milestones in the crypto market, the market has tanked, after that. So, I know you did a video on Bitcoin ETF, and I did a video as well. And just to briefly talk about it, if we go back to 2017, when CME futures first got launched, everyone expected, the crypto market to explode because that was extremely bullish news for the crypto market, definitely at that time. And it tanked 83% after that day. And then if we fast forward to this year, 2021, when we had Coinbase that went public, that was extremely bullish as well for the crypto market. And everyone expected it to just shoot up. And the market tanked 53% after that day of listing. And so when we just kind of look at history and major milestone events, history has shown the market to, tank a little. So I think time will tell, but it's kind of hard to say at this point.
It's kind of hard, but it is interesting, isn't it? Because like when we had the Coinbase, when it went public, that was April 14th, 15th, 17th, somewhere around there. And we were hitting those all-time highs, and then boom, it just tanked off. And then December 16th, 17th, 18th, 2017, the CBOE comes in and go, hey, we're going to do futures. And even the former head of the CFTC, Giancarlo, came out in 2018 and said, hey, we did that to essentially pop the bubble of the market. We felt like there was just too much going into it, and we wanted to make sure that we could not manipulate, but he said something like the words interact with it. Essentially what happened was everybody got to short it. They shorted the living tar out of it. And then, of course, it went down pretty far. But the question then is coming back to is like, well, is this really, really a thing? So that is for us really to talk about today. So I will say this. Let me jump over here real quick and talk about some prices. And here we are. So first of all, we've got a market cap, and depending on where you're at, it could be 2.15 trillion, 2.22 trillion, somewhere around there, but we're using Trade the Chain sentiment analysis, and that's what we have here. Bitcoin price, let's bring out some prices, huh? Actually, let me blow this up even more so. Yeah. So we've got, or actually even more on this. Oh, no. So we've got Bitcoin price is looking at, 60,507, which I mean, in all honesty, in the last, 4 weeks ago, we were in the 50s. And like a couple months ago, we were like in the 40s. So I'll still take it. Ethereum has dropped below 4,000. Binance Coin is 479. Let's take a look at the 24-hour. Actually, let's take a look at the 1 hour. So a percentage point. Solana's down 1%. But man, Solana's up 10% for the 24 hours. And I always thank Mike and James from Best Answers to getting me on Solana. But it's pretty much doing pretty well. And then so on and so forth. A little bit of red, a little bit of green, but quite a dip. And then on top of that, this is the ProShares ETF, ticker name BITO. And we started off on October 20th. I think that was on, it was a Tuesday, I believe, right? And then started off pretty good, around $40, came all the way up to 43, went a little bit sideways, and then down we go. And then around here, October 21st, so we're looking at, what was that, yesterday? Around in the morning, looking pretty good. Then it dropped again. Then it went sideways. And then this morning, 10:22, we're looking at pretty much sideways action. And then right around 9 a.m., everything starts to open up and get going, dropped again. And now here we are trying to recover, and we'll probably move sideways. So again, could this be one of those instances where there are whales moving things? Not just whales, but just people just getting into it and going, you know what? I'm going to short, I'm going to short, I'm going to short. Well, I don't know what's going on with the ETF, but I can tell you right now, if we take a look at, let me pull this up, BYBT, the short versus longs chart. If we take a look over the last 24 hours, looks kind of heavy short. 51% versus 48%. You can take a look from BitMEX, Binance, Bybit. But I think the bigger thing would probably be to narrow this down into the last 12 hours. No, a little bit more. The last 4 hours, besides Bitfinex. Let's take a look at the last hour. And you can see, and then of course, the more we go into it, oh, it looks pretty good. No, not too bad, actually. I think the more that everything drops down, maybe it's an inversion of what people are expecting. And they say, you know what? I'm going to short a little bit more, except for Deribit, Kraken, and Bitfinex. They want to go heavy on longs. Mike, what do you think?
Man, I mean, we could see a little bit more in shorts, but I think it's, for the most part, it's still kind of even. I mean, there's a little bit more percentage on the shorts, but I mean, when we look at longs and shorts, it's still pretty even on the charts. And for me, it's kind of hard to say, because I mean, there's so many scenarios where people say, hey, I'm going to take profits if it double tops again, which is what we saw with Bitcoin. And so we also have more people coming into the market. And if we look at the traditional stock market as well, it has tanked a little bit. And so I also think that has affected the Bitcoin ETF as well. And so I don't know, Rob, it's kind of hard to really, put your finger on what could really be the cause of everything,
You know what? Let's take a look at that. So let's see here. So here's the chart over the 4 hour, right? And we've got, man, look at this beautiful candle I've been talking about lately. This was on 20th of October. It went from 63,000 all the way up to 67.3. It's pretty nice. And then of course we were overbought. Then things just started to come around. Here's the MACD, RSI in the middle. And then, of course, there was a conversion. And then now we're taking a little bit dumps sideways. But we're within the Bollinger Band. I can see that's okay. If we take a look here, let's take a look at the S&P 500, NASDAQ, Dow, and Russell. What do we got? Wow. So yeah, S&P 500 is down, NASDAQ's down, Dow is up a tiny amount, Russell, US dollar, but who cares about that? And of course, the Bitcoin index, negative 3%. So it looks like everything is just down for the day, and that's what we got. So the big thing that I want to talk about is, before we get into the good stuff, is that this market, if you're from the traditional side, this is a pretty scary situation, because you're like, wow, this is really took a big dump. But for us, it's not that big of a deal, because we've already been here before. So when we take a look at these things, we're like, well, is this going to be the end all be all? Usually not. Usually there's a lot of positive things on the outskirts, and I can just see this could be a minor blip, maybe a little bit sideways for the ETF action, but again, we will see. So my big thing is, let's get into some positive news and talk about maybe what's going to happen in the near to midterm future. And let me pull this up here. So everybody, this was a good interview. This was about a week ago or so. This was between Raoul Pal and Anthony Pompliano from the Pomp podcast. And there was 2 snippets out of this whole interview. And it's a pretty good one. I linked it in the description. But the first thing is Raoul Pal was talking about how fast cryptocurrency is being adopted as compared to the internet. And the second thing he talks about was just Bitcoin and Ethereum price predictions. And I think this was important right now to take a look at this, especially today as we start to see the prices go down. Because these prices that we have right here, is this going to be forever? No, it's just like the weather and wherever you're at. If you don't like the weather, just wait a little bit, it'll change. So I'm going to play 2 snippets. The first one's about fast adoption, and the next one's about Bitcoin ETH predictions. So we will start right here. Let me know if you guys can hear this or not.
I think it goes very interesting. I've just got a chart of adoption of the internet, and crypto maps it beautifully, except the internet was growing at 63% a year when it had 150 million users, which crypto has now. So it was growing at 63% a year. Crypto is growing at 113%. So this is double the adoption rate of the fastest adoption of technology in all recorded history. So we've never seen anything like this. Extrapolate the maths, you get out to 1 billion people by 2024. So this is going to happen really, really fast. By the end of the decade, you're probably at 3.5, 4 billion people, so most of the world. So what does that mean for asset prices? Well, almost all the major asset classes, whether it's equities, bonds, real estate, they're all kind of in the 150 to $300 trillion range. Now, we kind of know that most of those assets are going to go on the blockchain anyway, but let's ignore that. To put this where I think it's going, it's currently 2 trillion. I think a roughly fair value to fit in with the other asset classes is 200 trillion. So it's 100x. We've never had an asset do 100x of that kind of magnitude in all recorded history. I mean, we've never.
Not too bad. All right. So there we go. So I'm thinking about this and like, that's pretty quick. I mean, as far as like adoption, everything else, Mike, what do you think? Do you think we are within that range, or do you think that's just too much pie in the sky talk?
I think if the numbers are there, we can't discredit that, if we're truly growing by 63%. But I also think because of blockchain and crypto is so technical, it's still taking a while to develop at the same time, which is, even though crypto may have 150 million users at the same time as the internet, we may not have seen the full peak yet because we have so much still to unfold. And so even with that being said, can we reach a 400K at the end of the cycle? And for me, honestly, I don't think that's happening. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm just being honest. I mean, do I think it can happen realistically, like over time? Absolutely. But at the end of this cycle, talking, March, April, if we have an extended bull cycle, even with an extended bull cycle, I don't know if we're going to see a 400K Bitcoin by April of next year. I think that's kind of pie in the sky a little bit.
Yeah. I will tell you this, like, it's amazing how the emotion gets into you, right? Because even as long as we've been around, like I've been around since 2017 and I went through the crypto winter, even now, like with this ETF, I was thinking to myself, maybe this could be pretty good. And then when I heard Raoul Pal talk about it, I'm like, yeah, maybe so. But then today, just as things start to tumble down you a little bit, you're like, all right, let's get back to reality. Maybe it's because I have always said that I thought Bitcoin would hit between 130 and 150K. And I think right now everybody watching is like, sure, I can definitely see that. 200K by the end of the year, that seems pretty high. 400K by January, February, March, and Raoul will talk about that a bit. That's a little bit of a stretch. But I bet you, Mike, if we hadn't seen this tumble with the ETF and we would have talked about this today, people were like, Rob, you're crazy. You and Mike don't know what they're talking about. It's going to go to 400K or maybe even 1 million. Who knows? So it's a good lesson to get your emotions in check, especially with these types of markets. And then just to show you what Raoul was talking about, he was talking about this chart as far as like adoption between cryptocurrency and the internet. So on the top there, I don't know if you can see it, it goes from 1992 all the way to 2006. That's the technology adoption curve for the internet, and everything that is in white is the total global internet users. So over in 1992, on the left-hand side, it kind of slow, a little bit slow, and then it kind of just goes up exponentially. The same thing here is in the orange is the total crypto users in millions. So that little thing that says, let me pull this up so you can see it. You are here. We are right at this little part right here. And it looks pretty good, but think of it this way. He talks about in the next 3 years, 2024, we could be at 1 billion users. Imagine that, 1 billion users. The global population between like 6.8 billion or something like that. It's not that's a lot of people actually, if you think about it. But I mean, if you come from here from a billion all the way up to like 3 billion people, all the way out to the end of this decade, which is, I might remind you, we're looking at like 8 years away, 8.5 years away. It's not that long. What could actually happen? So when we talks about that, I'm like, that is going pretty fast. I didn't realize it was that much. And if we also take a look at it and just say, well, he talks about the different asset classes, and he talks about, and me and Mike have talked about this at length, about stocks and real estate and equities and dividends and all these things. Like, this is the one I always reference. I referenced this actually yesterday. Every little square is 100 billion. So look at this. This is all the companies, the Fortune 500. Here's the stock market, about $100 trillion. Here's the money supply. Here's debt. I guarantee it's way more than that. Here's real estate, and you're looking at over $300 trillion. Global wealth, and then derivatives is like a quadrillion. So if you don't think we're going to tokenize some of this stuff or eat into this one, especially with this guy right here, gold with its 12 trillion market cap, I think it's a little bit far-fetched. And then lastly, I'll just say, remember this, that as cryptocurrency comes in, just remember the things. Well, actually, I'll say this for a bit. I'm droning on too much. Mike, what do you think about those first two parts we talked about?
Yeah, I mean, with the numbers seeing just the adoption rate of crypto growing, I mean, that's something to be seen within itself. And I also think, as time go on, we're going to see more adoption. But also, I think as more adoption come in, we're going to start to see maybe that incline of percentage of the adoption that's coming in start to taper, because we're going to have so many people in the crypto space. And so I still think the next 3 to 5 years, probably the most wealth to be made, of course, within the next 10 years from this point. But I think the next 3 to 5 years will create so much wealth, because we have so much that's developing. We have the crypto payment infrastructure that'll be pretty much fully developed by 2025. That's only 4 years away. And so when we look at everything that's happening, when we look at the companies, who they're choosing, even international countries as well, how they're moving. I mean, this year was the year of foundation and creating everything. Next year, I think, is going to be the year of regulation, which we've already seen the narrative being painted for that. And so when regulation hits, then what? And then if we just think about it in a perfect world, let's say the bull cycle hits, we're in it now. Let's say it hits, the end of next year is gone. I mean, not the end of next year, but going into next year is over. And then we have regulation that starts to set in as prices have tanked as well. And so we're going to start to see cryptos that not going to be here when the smoke clears, never come back up after regulation. And so I think this is something to kind of keep in mind as well.
Dude, that's pretty good. Because like when I think about it, and just like what you said right there, when you said in the next 3 to 5 years, what's going to happen? I mean, it's hard to do that, especially when you see like prices today or prices in the end of April and May and prices in September. It's so hard to think about it, because you're like, man, it's so much time. But like a lot of us have talked about, when in doubt, really need to zoom out. This is I'll put the 7-day up. This is for Bitcoin. Actually, let's go with the 14-day. So we went up, we went down here, all the way up, and it looks pretty good. And then, of course, we had some erratic, and then boom, we just dropped off. So today looks pretty scary. But if we take a look at this, let's just zoom way out. First of all, do you remember this bull run in 2013? I don't. I wasn't involved. But I can tell you, it looks ridiculous right now to think that was a bull run in 2013 when it was essentially flat. And this right here is 2017. And this right here is 2021. And this right here is us. So when we take a look at them, like, we really should zoom out. Like, this is the day to do exactly that. And then the last thing I will say is this, is when we think about all the things that crypto can do or could do and how much it's going to eat into the world, here's a little piece I picked up about like the top companies that got destroyed by the internet. So think about like what the internet did to companies and what cryptocurrency is going to do to finance, to transitioning money, to to make things DeFi, to make things as far as like the tokenization of properties and things like that. So trip down memory lane. Photo labs, Mike, you're a young guy. I don't think you remember this, but there was this thing called photo labs, and people would buy these little cameras and they would take them these places, and it was a huge industry. That doesn't happen anymore. Now you just upload everything to the cloud, and you print. If you want to print off, you can, mostly just on your computers, because it's also on the cloud devices. And you take a look at these. These are called floppy disks.
Yeah,
and
I remember those.
Yeah, we used to store things on there, and this was a huge thriving industry. But now, of course, that was like 1.2 megabytes or 3.5 megabytes. Now that's just laughable. Of course, again, you can just store things on the cloud on the internet. And then these things, personal digital assistants, you just actually put these things in. They didn't have any connection because there was no internet at that point. Now we have our smartphones. It connects to everything, and voice over internet protocol does those types of things. And this stuff, I don't know, does anybody remember these things? Overhead projectors?
Yes. Yeah. Used them in school.
Yeah, right. So like we had these in school, and now teachers, especially during the COVID pandemic, what did they do? Everything was based online anyhow. So all the different teaching material is just right there, and that's why you've got places like University of Phoenix. And then of course there's this thing called VCRs and DVDs. We used to buy these things, and now of course everything's just stored again on Google, or for me, everything's stored in the Amazon storehouse. And then this stuff, these are classified ads. I don't know if you guys remember, these are called newspapers. And I mean, they're still kind of around, but there's this thing called classifieds where you could find people. Well, then Craigslist came around and just destroyed that. And that's just, and then the last one, my favorite, maps. We used to actually use these things. Well, in the Army, we still do. But we would pull these things out and like, where do we want to go? Well, we do just route this thing. Of course, now everything's in GPS and onto your smart enabled device. These things are laughable now. So I think as we move forward, it's the same type of thing with crypto. Maybe even banks were like, wow, I remember those things called banks? Well, that's kind of a stretch. But Mike, what do you got?
I agree with that, man, because if we look at when crypto's like at full scale, that's when, our grandparents will be able to send crypto to their friends, like they can send a text message or email now. Just like how there's certain companies out there where you can just send crypto to someone just by their username. You don't have to worry about the hash address, which is so long. You can just send, hey, at Digital Asset News, here's your crypto. I mean, think about how easy that is. And when everyone's able to do that, that's when, things are at full scale. And we're going to look back maybe 5 years from now, say, hey, remember we had to go through all of these loopholes just to buy crypto? Remember when all of this wasn't on exchanges? I mean, even just people going back to 2017, I wasn't back in that time either, but there wasn't as many cryptos that was accessible as it is now today. There wasn't, all these different DeFi exchanges that were available to just bridge and get other assets. And so things have already changed a lot just in a short amount of time.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about how actually banks are getting into it in the next piece. But then there was also a snippet that I saw today. Walmart is going to allow Bitcoin kiosks in their stores, and they're already putting them in right now. And it's actually been confirmed by people, boots on the ground. That's pretty amazing. All right, so then we have so that whole thing there. And then I want to leave you guys with a little bit of hope, because I know today's probably not a great day. But again, remember, zoom out to the big picture. This next piece, let me pull this up. Let me share my screen. So Pomp likes to ask everybody their price predictions. And I've got mine. Mike's got his. But this one is like, when I heard this, I was like, I don't know if that's even remotely possible. But let me just have you guys take a listen to this.
I don't have to figure anything out. It's just normal.
All right, I want to wrap up with the question we ask everyone. We need a Bitcoin price prediction by end of year, and I need an Ethereum price prediction by end of year. What do you got for us?
I was doing some work on this on the weekend for Global Macro Investor. I'm kind of thinking, I'm kind of a little bit overly bullish right now. And I think the cycle, well, no, because that's not fair, because I was looking at the cycle itself. I think Bitcoin somewhere north of 200 and ETH closer to 15K. But I think we finished the cycle with Bitcoin close to 400 and ETH closer to 40,000.
All right. So you think by end of year, we've got Bitcoin 200K or so. We've got ETH at 15K. You think end of cycle, which in your opinion, it sounds like kind of February, March of next year.
Something like that, yeah.
Bitcoin's 400,000 and ETH is 40,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mike, what do you got? What do you got for that?
Well, I mean, the first thing he said that got me is he said he's overly bullish, right? So that means that he's pretty optimistic, on the price. So, I mean, in his eyes, definitely that can happen. In my eyes, I don't think we're going to see, a 400K Bitcoin at the end of the cycle. I don't think we're going to see a 40K Ethereum. I think at the most, if any, maybe 10K, probably 10K is probably what most people are talking about, 8 to 10,000 Ethereum. And Bitcoin, I definitely think it could hit 100K this year. Will it hit 200K? Not sure. I think it may peak out maybe 150 potentially, but not sure.
Not sure. I mean, look, anything that right now, if you're like me, you watching this video or watching us, all the hard work's done essentially. I've already done the hard work, and we talked about this before. The hard work isn't now. This is just more volatility. The hard work is done when nobody cares about a project, when everybody laughs at you, when your friends, family, loved ones are like, why do you even put money into that? Put that into something safe, like a savings account in the bank. And that's even laughable too. So like that the hard work's done in all that time, and all that talk, all that gibberish about buying the dip, that's tough to do too, because it's like, do I really want to do this again? And there's been dips upon dips upon dips and dips. And you're like, man, I'd like to buy the dip, but I'm all dipped out because I put so much money into it. So all that is the hard work. This is just the time just to sit back and just go, okay, well, I got it. All right. Thank you, Mike, for that one. Raoul Zarate says, good question. Do you all see Bitcoin at $5,900 on Monday morning? What are some predictions? My prediction is, or 59,000, excuse me. Right now it's teetering around 60,000. We all know that the weekends, especially like Sundays, Mondays, Tuesdays, those are the time when everybody takes a bunch of profits, because it seems like, and my friend Alex has been doing this for like the last 10 weeks. All he does is he buys on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and then he sells on a Friday or Saturday. And it works out pretty well. Because it's been working out like that for again, like the last 10 weeks. So I don't see how we could, 59,000 for Bitcoin on a Monday. Sure. Why not? The real question is what's it going to be at the end of the year? And then maybe at the end of the cycle. Mike, what do you think?
I definitely think 59,000 is possible, on Monday, like you said. And then also, depending on what the market does, like you said, if you don't like what the market's doing, just wait a second and it'll change. And so one thing I think, man, is that if we see 59,000 or if we don't see 59,000, we can also very well see a pump going into the weekend, because as we know, the crypto market typically raises going into the weekend, because we also have traditional players coming to the crypto market because we're the only game in town. The stock market's closed, and so this is why we see those pumps that happen all the time. And then also, real quick, this is something I never really talked about, and I'm going to give it to everyone. This is not always 100% accurate, but if you look at stable coins, and the main two stable coins, if you look at Tether, and I don't know if you can pull it up real quick, Rob, but if you look at Tether, you look at USDC, typically when the market is down, you're going to see the stable coins green. When the market is up, you're going to see the stable coins red.
I'll show you. So we've got, right now, I believe we've got Tether is 0.1%, but that's like, within the last, in the last hour, it says green, but it's just stable. But USD coin is 0.2%. Yeah. That's the last hour, and 7 days, 0.2%, but not much, but enough to where I can see your point for sure. And then actually, let's go back real quick. Let's see if people are gobbling this up. And look at this. Let me go to the hour. James is always talking about this. He's always concerned with, and he's right to be so, about when you start to see like these dips, how far does it go before people just go, nope, the bulls are like, no, I'm going to gobble this up. I think this is it. So once it went to 60, before it dropped below 60,000, it was bought up again. Maybe that is the level of support, as we can see here, as far as the Bollinger Bands go. And we can see it was teetering on oversold anyhow. So, hey, maybe we were wrong on that one, that 59,000. I'm happy to be wrong, but only time will tell. Good stuff. All right. And then, so there's two more things to go over. And I think this is more bullish news than I think anybody's really talked about too much. I only saw this in a quick snippet. This was Houston firefighters pension fund makes Bitcoin Ether purchase. Now keep in mind, it was only 25 million. It was only 25 million in crypto, but it is the first, and as far as I know, only investment fund as far as pensions that have gotten into crypto to date in the United States. If you're from around the world, let me know if anybody else, any of your countries or individuals or entities in your countries have gotten into pensions as far as like for outside the US. But here's what we got. A pension fund for firefighters in Houston made a purchase in Bitcoin and Ether facilitated by Bitcoin investment firm NYDIG. And the reason why I'm talking about NYDIG and why I think this is so big, it's what we and Mike were talking about as far as like banks and them kind of like, as I call it, getting blockbustered. NYDIG, they are a pretty big entity, and they've been in the crypto and digital assets for quite some time. They're based out of New York. And what they're doing is they're trying to get these smaller banks and these, small banks and credit unions and even medium-sized banks to start to offer crypto to their customers. And they talk to them because they say, look, this is actually going to be a big thing and you should be on top of this. Now, the bigger banks, some of them are getting into it, but some aren't. And then the smaller ones, they don't want to be left behind. So this is a great thing. This was actually a couple months ago, June 24th, Institutional Bitcoin Shop, NYDIG, is partnered with Texas fintech firm Q2 to provide Bitcoin. Q2 is a behind-the-scenes player providing online banking software to 450 small and medium-sized banks and credit unions. According to Gene Kondo, Q2's vice president of communications, Q2's decision to partner with NYDIG was based on client demand. So every time you hear about these big entities going, we don't see much demand, we don't really see much demand, they're lying because, well, maybe they're not lying, they're just not talking to the right people. But if you can see here, there's definitely demand. And even BlackRock came out and said, yeah, there is demand. But back to this story. The fund invested 25 million Bitcoin Ether. And this is from Ajit Singh. He's the chief investment officer. He says, I see this as another tool to manage my risk. It has a positive expected return, and it manages my risk. It has a low correlation to every other asset. Kind of debatable. But yeah, the investment was made via Bitcoin investment firm NYDIG. And then this is the big thing. Since 2004, active firefighters have contributed 9% of their salary to the fund, with the city of Houston required to contribute at least double that amount by each state. Why is that important, especially with pensions? It's because of this. I don't know where you're at in the world, but in the US, we got a pension problem. And there is this great graphic from the Wall Street Journal, and it just talks about, does your state have a pension problem? Especially because the government in each of those states are supposed to subsidize or help out with these state-run pensions. So in Illinois, for example, this is the worst one. The pension obligations funded, only 47%. Where are they going to make up the other, let me do some quick math, 53%? I don't know. Kentucky, Connecticut, Alaska, Kansas. And look at these numbers. This is how much they have funded or need to be funded. And the one for Texas, it's actually pretty good. It's 81%, but still they're missing out on 20% of what needs to be funded for these pensions. So this gentleman here, Ajit Singh, the chief investment officer, did a pretty smart thing. He's like, hey, I see this as an asymmetrical return. I'm going to get into this. Mike, I know I was long-winded. What do you think about these pensions getting involved? I think it's a big thing.
I do think it's a big thing. And looking at it from the perspective of the traditional market. And the reason why I say that, because if you're looking at it from the crypto market, you're kind of like, this is big for crypto, but I don't care about a pension, right? We're people who like to own our own wealth. But when you look at it from the people who don't know about crypto, which is most of the world still today, and people that's in the stock market and bonds, mutual funds, this is very, very important for them. And this is going to give them that segue to invest in Bitcoin and other cryptos without them really having to do the work. Because I mean, if you think about it, we live in a time of day where people pay to cut the learning curve. No one really wants to, do the full work. So if someone say, hey, this asset has shown to do this time and time again, we'll have you go ahead and invest in this instead of this mutual fund. Okay, cool. I'll do it. That's most people today. And so for them to get exposure through a company, a public company they already trust, that's just like the Bitcoin ETFs. That's just like the trust that's been being launched for different cryptos and Bitcoin. I think with all of that, it's just helping expand the overall traditional market. And I think some of that as well will help some people trust crypto a little bit more, which will allow them to get into the crypto space, actually into it directly, as in using DeFi, as in using actual crypto exchanges, instead of actually using these financial institutions where they don't truly own the crypto. They're just actually getting direct exposure or indirect exposure to it.
Right.
And so I think overall, this is bullish. Absolutely. You know what I mean? I think it's more so bullish for the traditional market because it's just giving us more exposure.
Yeah. And it makes a lot of sense though, doesn't it? And that's why I had such high hopes for the ETF, and it started off with a bang. And now, just like the rest of the market, it's a little bit volatile. Because if we can show that, hey, there's not as much manipulation, or hopefully minimize manipulation, but let's not kid ourselves, right? In the metals market, there's a ton of manipulation. In equities, there's tons of manipulation. There's manipulation everywhere. Let's just call a spade, right? But for this one, I'm kind of hoping that it would actually do pretty well. And it's still there. It's still there. And even like the spot price shows that, hey, there's a certain point where it's ridiculous to let it fall this low. We're going to buy it up. And it makes sense. And then, so we've got ProShares ETF. And then we also have Van Eck. They got green lit by the SEC for the end of October. Check me in the comments. And I think another one just got approved as well for a futures ETF. Someone said in the comments, but not for sure. And this was a good one. I didn't see this, but this is cool. Andrew Rice says, hey, Rob, New York Pension Fund bought a ton of Mara shares a month ago. So you get exposure through dices. You get exposure through Marathon, or like Riot, which is a Bitcoin mining operation. So instead of them going, we're going to get into this ETF, well, what is getting this company that does solely Bitcoin mining? And that's pretty much like, not pretty much, but it's the next best thing to get into Bitcoin. So do you see that type of thing happening, Mike? More companies doing that?
Yes, I could definitely see that. And I think it's those companies that's kind of taking that first mover advantage, kind of paves the way for the other companies. Because, some companies like, well, I don't want to take that first step yet if it fails, because they're not truly fully believing in in Bitcoin and blockchain and crypto and everything it can do. And so when certain companies take that step and they're like, oh, if this company took that step and they're in my sector, I think it's time for me to take that step as well.
Nobody wants to be first, but nobody wants to be last. That's what's up. All right. So then we're going to finish up with this, because I think this is the big thing, especially right now. There's a little volatility in the market. People are like, what's going on? Should I sell? Should I do a bunch of things? Of course, this is where we talk about zoom out. This is not a big thing. This is just a Friday afternoon. Nobody cares. In the next 2 years, no one's going to remember this day. No one's going to remember this day. Me and Mike were like, remember the time we were talking? I don't remember. And this is what it comes down to. I personally try to get my brothers, I personally try to bribe my brothers into getting into crypto. And I think, well, let me just show you exactly what happened. So this was a text I sent my brothers. I go, look, you guys want $500 or not? They said, for what? And then this is Eric and Brandon, that's my brothers. And he says, hell yeah, who wouldn't? I said, well, I'll let you know. And then later in the day, I said, look, here's what I want you to do. I want you to open up a Voyager account. I'll send you $500 to start buying crypto. 2 conditions. You got to download it and set up today. And you have to use the $500 to buy crypto this weekend. Here's the link. And then they said, I sent them some dumb video, whatever else. And that's just wrong. I can't stop laughing. And this was on Wednesday. So you know what's wrong? Both of you jokers didn't put the free money into crypto like I told you to. And of course, it was up majorly. Now, of course, it's taking a little bit of a drop, but it doesn't matter. And then this was the big thing. My brother Eric says, and he's like Mike. He's a traditional player guy, but Mike was a smarter one. He got into crypto as well. he's like, I don't know why I want to do this, because I just had a nice jump in TD Ameritrade, Schwab, and Visa. I'm good. And then I actually sent him this chart, this 5-year chart, and I said, hey man, that's great. I know you got a lot in these, and I know you 4x your investment, so congratulations. And I was this close, Mike. I was this close to sending him this chart, the 5-year for Bitcoin. And then I could have, like, really dug it into him, like, burn, I got you. But then I remembered, I'm like, you know what? This is the same thing that I go through when people are like talking to me about a certain project, like, oh, Rob, you're a moron, you didn't get into this, you didn't get into that. And I think at the end of the day, it just comes down to what's his goal? What's your goal? What's my goal? Because my goals are different from your goals. At some point, maybe people just are like, you know what? I don't want to be involved in that riskiness. My brother's older than me. He's done a lot of different things. So maybe it's not him, but the other brother is a moron. And I'm going to keep working on him, because I'm like, look, man, in the next 5 years, I mean, would you not want to be 10x, 20x, 50x at some point? Not investment. I can't give you at home investment advice, just investment opinion, but those jokers, I can give investment advice all day long. So my brothers. And I just think to it at some point, it was like, you know what? Maybe just some people don't want to get in, and they just feel like, I don't want to take the risk. Mike, how do you deal with it? And then how do you deal with the people who are out there who you try to get in? They're just like, I don't want to do it.
Man, first I got to kind of talk about the thing you said, because I'm kind of the same way. When you was like, when people say, hey, Rob, you should talk about this coin, or hey, you should look into this project. I mean, I get that a lot too. And people are like, Mike, man, you're crazy for not getting into it. You're still early, right? And I think sometimes we're comfortable where we are as far as like investing, because I mean, you it's kind of like you found your sweet spot, and all you have to do is just keep doing what you're doing, riding the wave, and you know what's going to happen at the end of that rainbow, right? And so I think that's where certain people are. And I think also when you look at it, when you have people that's in the traditional market, if they already have a lot of money that's took them a long time to make, because they're not going to make it as quick as in crypto. So if they've already, been in the traditional market for 5, 10 plus years, and they've made a decent amount of money, they're not going to want to really risk that going into crypto. And then if you think about people with big money who don't understand and see what's coming in the future, take celebrities, for example. Yeah, we got a lot of that's coming into the crypto space, but let's just take celebrities that we do know of, or movie stars, or just people of power. There's still some of them that haven't publicly announced they're getting into crypto. Some are in crypto, and there's a lot that's not in the crypto, because one, they want to keep their money. They don't understand it, so they don't want to invest in it. They'd still rather invest into a stock because it's easier to understand.
Yeah, I just think, because like in my mind, I'm like, well, wouldn't you want to make a ton of money? Wouldn't you want to get into it? And it's almost like NFTs, like for us, right? For some people, NFTs is like the end all be all. But I think about it, I'm like, in my portfolio, I have a HODL position, which is like 97, 96%. I just buy and hold. And I'll DCA in, I'll DCA out. And then 2% or so I'll trade just for funsies. And then like 1% I might invest in an NFT here and there. And it's kind of like gambling, because there's some massive rewards, but the risk is like crazy. So I think that's just me, and that's my goals. I think maybe for other people, just like Mike said, like they've been involved for so long with traditional stuff. They're like, well, I'm already here. I don't really need too much more. So I'm just going to kind of sit in the sidelines, just wait it out and just keep what I have. I think that's what it is. And then it's either that or there's just not enough education. And then some people will say, well, one thing I will say, if you're sitting on a pile of cash, you're doing it wrong. That's an investment opinion, not investment advice. But if you've got, I know I have some friends who are sitting on a bunch of money in their bank account. That's all they want to do. And I'm like, why just keep it there as it decreases by 2% statistically, or maybe even 10% if you talk about inflation. So that's what I think, Mike.
I hear you. There's some I wanted to share the screen on when you mentioned Bitcoin ETFs.
Yeah.
So there's we have 3 more pending, 2 more this month, and 1 in November. And I have a screenshot. Let me show you here.
Yeah, share that. Let me take this banner off. Yeah. Where's your screen? Oh, I got it. There it is. But add a stream.
And so you can see we got the Pro Shares October 18th, Invesco Bitcoin Strategy at October 19th, VanEck October 25th, Valkyrie October 25th, and then we have the Galaxy Bitcoin strategy at November 1st. And this is from Bloomberg as well. So this is credible.
Is this now, are these going to be, they're already potential? Well, okay, so these are all potential approvals.
Correct.
And we know ProShares got it. I know VanEck got it. So I don't know. Invesco, Valkyrie, and Galaxy. Is that Mike Novogratz's thing?
I think so. Not 100% sure. Let us know in the comment section, but I believe so. But I just wanted to show that when we were just kind of talking about the adoption of like traditional markets and things like that. I mean, I think a lot of traditional market wealth is, in my opinion, as time go on, will be forced to come over to crypto.
Cool. All right. Well, look, everybody, that does it for today for the news section and what we're talking about. Let's just do a little Q&A because we're kind of getting heavy on that one. This is from King James. This is from Mike. Is Mike the investor in the U.S. for taking advantage of tax benefits elsewhere?
You said, am I taking advantage of tax? I am not. I'm strictly still in the U.S. I'm not like my good friend Rob, who's in Puerto Rico and in the U.S. So I'm just in the U.S. right now, man.
Yeah, just in the U.S. The best way to take advantage of like tax incentives is still a Roth IRA. There's a link in the description for iTrust Capital. Mike, between us, no one's watching. There's I was on a show with Anthony Bertolino, the head of operations for iTrust. He was on the show, and then after he was done, or we were done, he's like, "Hey, I got some big news." So I shut it down. And then he's like, "Hey, this is going to happen. This is going to happen next month." And I was like, "What?" So I can't share it with you guys. I'm going to share it with Mike after this, but it's kind of like to get into iTrust is going to be the biggest no-brainer in 28 days. That's all I can tell you. But iTrust, they give you a choice of a SEP, traditional, or a Roth IRA. A Roth IRA, if you don't know, that's how Peter Thiel made $1 billion because he put his taxed dollars or his shares of PayPal into his Roth IRA, which were worth nothing back in the early 90s. And of course, they blew it up to billions of dollars. And he paid this much in taxes because a Roth IRA, it's whatever you put in is taxed first, and whatever it accumulates to, let's say Bitcoin goes to Raoul Pal is 400,000. Well, guess how much you pay in taxes off from 60,000 to 400,000? That much. So links in the description, iTrust Capital. So yeah, that's a good question. Let's see what else. Gary Gensler hates us all. Perhaps that could be true. I'm not for sure. What else we got? Agree. Frank asked a good question, and I don't know. Are any of these spot ETFs? I don't think they're spot. I think they're all futures, but I could be wrong. Mike?
One of them is spot. I need to go back and look at one of my things, but one of them, I know Grayscale is talking about putting in a spot ETF. So the Bitcoin ETF the Bitcoin trust they have, they already filed to convert almost their 40 billion worth of assets under management to a Bitcoin spot ETF. So it hasn't been like announced when it will actually come out, but they announced that they filed for it to be accepted by the SEC.
Yeah, crazy. So real quick, Mike, talk to people about the difference between this futures and the spot. I saw a question about that.
I mean, futures pretty much are betting on the price going up and down. And I mean, the spot price is going to kind of give you what the price of that asset is at that time to be able to buy it at in simplest terms without being too technical.
And then one is paper. Essentially, you're just trading paper. And spot is like you're actually doing, you're supposed to actually have a physical asset. But yeah, spot is that price. And then that's why that ETF, those prices are like $40, $42. And it'll vary wildly. But it's just like Mike said before, it's great when you have an SEC regulated ETF come in and people go, oh, well, I trust, for whatever reason, I trust the SEC because I'm used to the SEC, so this must be a legit thing. And it's just like you're guilty by association. I guess that's a bad way to say it, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Ob, I'm not even trying to say your last name because I'm going to butcher it. Is it possible that Bitcoin hitting 100K is just a psychological number to distract us and big money would dump before then around 75 to 85K levels? Meaning are people going to dump before we hit 100K? Mike, what do you think?
Well, one thing I've shared with my patrons is over history have shown investors are known to take profits at even numbers. Histories have shown this. So whether you're looking at an asset that's hitting $1 for the first time, psychologically, it's a huge milestone. People are going to want to take profits there. So when you look at Bitcoin, think about how many people have talked about Bitcoin hitting 100K. There's going to be so many people wanting to hit that sell button at that price. And so, I mean, I don't know if it's just big money, and I get what you're saying about that. But I also think it's just the whole market itself psychologically wanting to take that profit, because some people will think it's the top. Some people think that's just the next part to sell. I mean, there's so many things that's going on. And then plus it's an even number.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's easy to do, right? So what do you tell your Patreons to avoid that?
So for me, what I told them to do is look to take on any type of asset and not just crypto. On even numbers, you want to take, so let's just say, if you're looking to take profits at 100K on Bitcoin, not financial advice, you may want to potentially, now depending on where it's going, now if it shoots past 75, 85, 90,000, it's most likely going to hit that 100K. Probably look at taking profits around 90, 95 if it's already over 90,000. You know what I mean? Don't wait for it to hit 100K. Reason being, because once it hit 100K, the resistance may pull it back where you're not able to sell it back at that price again. Just like any other asset. Let's just say, for example, people are waiting on ADA to hit $5, $10, right? Well, think about how many people are going to sell at $5. Think about how many people are going to sell at $10. And if the support isn't strong enough, it's going to pull back, and it's going to take longer for it to hit that level again. So then you've missed your opportunity to even sell at a higher price than being greedy. And so for me, I always say, if you're looking to seriously take profits on something, take it before that even psychological number, because you may not get that chance again. Crypto exchanges have shown to crash. I mean, we've seen too many things happen. So why wait?
Yeah, why wait? Yeah, why? Or just put your limits in and just go, I'll sell this one, or at least, or even set alarms if you think about it. But but you got to be like right around there. So hopefully you have some place you can sell your crypto quick, and they have like limit orders where you can sell it at a certain price. That'd be the big thing. So, to answer your question about 75 to 85K level, I mean, if you think about it, it could be any level, and I think whales have been doing this for all the way up this whole staircase. I don't think there's ever been a day or at least a week where there's, as my friend George from Cryptos R Us says, whale games. They play whale games. They start to crash a little bit, and it doesn't take that much to manipulate this market. We're only 2.3 trillion market cap. That's nothing. It's so easy to manipulate. So that's a big thing. And here's some concerning question. Speaking of iTrust, Rob, iTrust is making New Yorkers sell their crypto holdings. They give the option to sell into gold, silver, or USD until they get clarity. Can you discuss a good strategy for this? First of all, this is a travesty, and it's the wrong thing that the American government, actually any government, is stepping in the way of people making the best decision for themselves and their family by investing into certain assets. It is amazing to me that you can go into any casino around the country and blow your entire life savings and nobody bats an eye. Well, except your wife probably. But then after that, the SEC steps in and Gary Gensler is like, we're here to protect the consumer. Really are you? Are you here to protect the consumer? Because I could have made a lot more money if you just get out of the way and allow me to do my thing. But now here you are saying, and what have they done in general to actually protect us in any way, shape, or form because of this ETF? Just because they said it's an ETF? It infuriates me. So, Frisson, to answer your question, can you discuss a good strategy? This is definitely going to be investment opinion. Definitely talk to your accountant about what are the ramifications. Because if you have to sell crypto, that might be a taxable event at that point. However, there may be some laws because if you're selling it for crypto into precious metals, there may be a loophole there. I'm not for sure. But that is a question that is beyond me. But definitely before you do anything, like going, okay, I'll take the cash, and then you're stuck with a short-term capital gains tax. Don't do that. Talk to a professional first. Mike, what do you got?
I agree with you, man. I agree with you on that statement. And I think you're more knowledgeable on iTrust as well because you've been in a little bit longer. I use the platform as well. But I agree with you. I think you should talk with your accountant because, I mean, when it comes to taxes, I mean, it's one thing for us to talk investments, but when it comes to taxes, it's just so technical and it's so different for every person. So I would definitely agree with Rob. Talk to your accountant. Make sure you don't really have to sell your cryptos and figure out, is there any type of, loophole or anything you can get through, on that asset. And then there was one thing I wanted to say that you said, Rob, is about manipulation. Well, if we look at the stock market, over 100 trillion, if the stock market can be manipulated, we don't think a baby of 2.3, 2.5 trillion can be manipulated, and so I think if some people realize that, they understand kind of what market we are in.
Yeah, exactly. So, and again, so right now we know that there is some price action, to say the least, going on, and that could just be as easily as just a couple of whales, 5, 10, whatever, 2 whales just playing around and just going, you know what, we are going to take some profits from 64,000. We're going to drop it down to 60,000. However, it was interesting when we took a look at the charts. We saw that it would not go below 60 because people were buying it right up. The bulls are like, nope, not gonna make you do that. So for all those things, I will just say I think it's going to be more volatile this entire weekend, but we'll see how it all plays out. Mike, what else we got? I think that's it for the questions. Let me make sure and I'll go over that.
Man, I think that's it, man. I think that's it. I
that's
think
it.
only time will tell. Time will tell. Sit back and wait.
Exactly. All right. Well, everybody, so thanks for coming by. We appreciate it. Remember, Mike the Investor, his channel is in the very top of the description of this one, but he's in every single one of my videos under, there's 8 YouTubers I try to watch at least twice a week, or at least if I can get it out once a day. And Mike is one of those 8. So he's in the description, but then this one, he's at the very top, right underneath when I talk about what the video is going to be about. So check him out, check out his Patreon, all that good stuff. And that is it. So thanks for stopping by. We appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next one.